just when I was starting to grow my channel and get some attention for the work that I was doing online, I got an invitation to be interviewed. One of the very first people that ever wanted to interview me. In fact, I think this was probably the second person that ever asked to interview me on his own channel. And it was somebody with a very professional British accent. Could have been hosting a nature documentary, and that was DPR Jones, who had his own channel. He was a lawyer, and he was taking on aspects of YouTube at that time, and a number of religious extremist activists that were infringing on other people's space. And he was very very handy and capable of what he was doing. And we both ended up being activists for a time. And I remember at some point there was a conference that was being held in Dublin. It was a World Atheist Conference, and that was going to be that was my first time off this continent, off the North American continent. And DPR Jones went. So we met physically in person for the very first time, and we both shared a stage with Richard Dawkins, which I think that's something to put on your resume, isn't it? And had a great time. Became fast friends. I had met up with DPR Jones a number of other times. He came to the U.S. For the Reason Rally in 2012, and we went. There was another time that we met in Austin for American Atheist National Convention, and then there was another American Atheist National Convention going on in Salt Lake City, Utah. This was my favorite one for DPR because he was coming in. He was going to fly straight to Salt Lake City, and I told him, no, you're not going to fly right into America's most boring city. I said, land in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'll pick you up there. And it wasn't just DPR; it was also the True Puka was coming in from New York, and so I picked him up there, and we drove on into the Four Corners area out of New Mexico. Four Corners is New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada. Arizona, excuse me. And so I drove him around all that. And when I first presented the idea to him, I remember him whinging a bit, as he said, "You want me to sit in a car for literally hundreds and hundreds of miles?" But as it turned out, he enjoyed the trip very much. Of course, there's some stunning desert vistas, and he brought a nice high quality camera, was shutterbugging the whole way. The road into it wasn't just the desert vistas and all of that, and there was a lot of other scenic things to see. We had a great road trip. It would have made a nice road movie. And one of the things was when we were right as we're getting into Salt Lake City, there's a huge mountain pass, and we went through. There was traces of snow everywhere, and it's really stunning. A beautiful way for an Englishman to see the United States. And I remember when we went to the Salt Lake City thing, and then I had another trip planned that I tried to keep secret from him, which was that we went from Salt Lake City to go to Las Vegas, Nevada, where I'd booked a room at the Stratosphere Hotel, and of course we went up and down the Strip and everything, and then we went from there to Hoover Dam, to Grand Canyon, to Meteor Crater, and then on back to Albuquerque so he could fly back. And DPR boasted to me that was the best trip he'd ever taken in his life. And I let him drive for a little bit in my car, even though he's driving on the wrong side of the road. I remember he made me pull over so we could take a picture of one of the road signs where just as we're pulling out of Salt Lake City, it says Las Vegas, 451 miles. And he goes, nothing in England is 451 miles away, which is great. Subsequently, there was an event that went on in Dallas, and so DPR has been to my home, stayed with me for a few nights, and I had been to his in Nottingham, England. He secured, when we were coming through that area, he managed to get the house next to him. It's like one of those duplex kind of things, it's British housing, so they're all very close together, and in like what do they call those? I guess townhouses. And the one next to him happened to be vacant at that moment. And so he secured that we could use that house. And so we're cooking together and hanging out together and all of that. And it both in Nottingham and in Manchester and in London. And it's surprising for two people who live in different countries that we would meet up so often for so many different events. And I very much appreciated the relationship that we had, and I was very saddened to hear that he had a month or so ago collapsed, and there was no reason explained to me. I know there was an investigation, but I never heard the result of it, and I never actually, I never requested to know what the result was. It didn't really matter. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die, and he just got a head start on some of us. Anyway, RIP DPR. One thing DPR Jones did that I thanked him for many times was that he'd organized a charity telethon to benefit Doctors Without Borders. And it was an annual event, a 24-hour event, a 24-hour telethon that was done on Blog TV at that time. And it would have up to 1,500 atheists in the community, building community, as we all chat back and forth with each other in these huge chat rooms and everything. We would take turns getting on camera together and staying up for 24 hours, just having this big old party. And then the funny thing is that after all of that, it was over and we finally shut the screen off, we'd feel like we've just been in a party for all this time talking to all these people, and then realize that we've actually been sitting there drinking alone at home that whole time. As I said, it was a great way to build community. It was he connected everyday people with many celebrities, and had like everybody on that we could think of, and it was a very good time. And it raised $100,000 for that organization, and I thanked DPR very much for that. So, cheers, my friend.